Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2502. We all need tires, and today we're going to be talking tires. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm in Irwindale, California, with a very special guest by the name of Phillip Kane. Phillip, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have any gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
Mark, I'm ready. Thank you for having me. It's a great day here in Southern California.
Well, I should say, are you ready to lay down some stripes? But maybe being into tires, that isn't such a good thing. But, we'll see as we go. Before we give you a proper introduction and we dive into your world of tires, I wondered if you could share one little thing with me that maybe people don't know about you.
I'm much shorter in real life.
Me too.
No, I don't know. My wife does a great job of revealing all my secrets, so I really don't have many. But hey, let's try this since it's a car show after all. My first car was a copper-colored 1979 Pontiac Sunbird with a 231 V6 in it that we promptly recammed, put a Edelbrock intake on, headers, and American racing wheels to make it just marginally cool. So a lot of people don't know that. So I'll share that with you this morning. How's that?
Well, I think I'm talking to the right guy here, so I like that. I like that very much. Since then, known, we'll get into this a little bit later. You've had a bunch of cool cars and have a bunch of cool cars, so we'll dive into that. But let me give you a proper introduction so we set the tone here. Phillip Kane is the Chief Executive Officer at Turbo Wholesale Tires, which also owns RBP Tire, Lexani Tire, and a Lionhart Tire. Phillip grew up in his family's car and truck dealerships, having survived bracket racing in a 1965 Pontiac GTO. I love it, the GOAT. He went on to spend more than 25 years in some of the best-known automotive, industrial, consumer durables, distribution, and banking businesses in the world. He acts as a senior advisor to Stout, where he brings operational expertise to their investment banking business. Previously, he was the chief commercial officer in key markets at Pirelli in Milan, Italy. Very cool. Working in their commercial truck tire business. Phil spent 11 years working for Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. Before that, he held executive roles with Genuine Parts Company, known as NAPA, and Snap-on. This guy's been around and done a lot. We'll be back in just a moment, but first a word from our sponsors. So please give them a little love, and we'll be right back. Are you ready to take charge of your financial future? Then let me introduce you to Capitalize Your Finances. It's an online course designed to empower you with the knowledge and tools for mastering your money. This course will help you lay out the ins and outs of budgeting, the importance of emergency funds, investing strategies, and how to plan for a secure retirement. All this presented by financial planner Chris Paniotu. Chris has developed this course to help you effectively navigate your world of finance with confidence. Stop stressing about money and start taking control. Enroll in Capitalize Your Finance online course today and pave your way to financial success. To learn more, go to capitalizepodcast.com/courses, or better yet, go to the Cars Yeah website, show notes page for today's show, and click on the link under Capitalize Your Finances. You'll be glad you did. Do it today. For several years now, you've heard me talk about Linkage Magazine. I've been a subscriber since the start. Their talented and creative team brings you a spectacular publication and website that shares the automotive passion from a worldwide perspective. Linkage is about driving, restoring, collecting, and first-hand experience at collector car auctions and more. They bring you real-world values plus rational, experienced opinions on the current markets. They cover the automotive world and the people who share our passions. And Linkage Magazine has grown, mailing you 6 issues annually. Join me on this journey with Linkage. They're geared for the automotive life. You can subscribe at linkagemag.com. Being a professional automotive technician today requires an understanding of technology, computers, and electrical systems that are highly advanced and very complex. Cars Yeah is pleased to support TechForce Foundation. It's one of our charities of choice, and its efforts to help young people pursue the technical education and careers as automotive techs. Through scholarships, grants, and good old-fashioned hands-on experience with cars, trucks, boats, and more, TechForce and Cars Yeah are working to connect young people with viable careers in the automotive sector. Join us by visiting techforce.org today. So we are back. So I want to talk first about what got you into the business of tires, because when you think about the tire business, there's so many tire companies, there's so many businesses out there. And for all those of us who buy tires, sometimes it gets to be a little bit overwhelming. Where do I go? What do I get? And so forth. But if you could walk us through a little bit of your history and also your tie-in with Stout, for example, investment banking, if you will. And also, I understand you're very keen on leadership, contributing to magazines and also helping young people in the business. So a leader in that world. So give us a little history before we dive into what you're doing today.
I grew up in the automotive business, as you pointed out in my very kind introduction, Mark. My grandfather was an international harvester truck dealer. My dad was a car dealer. So I grew up, my earliest memories are climbing around big, heavy trucks. So the only thing I knew in my life were cars and trucks. And I never in my life wanted to do anything other than be around cars and trucks. But my dad had a rule, which is the same rule his dad had, which is you can work here, but you got to go work somewhere else first. And I went out in the world and had such a great time out there that I never came back. And as you pointed out, I went to places like Snap-on and then NAPA. And one day at NAPA, minding my own business, a retained search firm from Goodyear called on behalf of the then chairman, Bob Keegan, who was looking for what he called general athletes to come and help turn the company around. And at that point in time, this was the fall of 2004, Goodyear stock was around $3. The company was contemplating bankruptcy. Things were not going well at all. And meanwhile, I'm working for Genuine Parts Company. This is a company that hit their profit goal every quarter but one since 1928 in an appreciating real estate market in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm on this fast track with this company, and I'm contemplating going to the Rust Belt, a depreciating real estate market, to go to work for this company that's on the verge of bankruptcy. And my friends thought I had lost my mind.
Well, I'm sitting here wondering, why on earth would you even consider that?
But the thing was, I wanted to be part of what Bob Keegan was doing, which was saving this iconic company. And not to be melodramatic about it, but I had in my mind that this vision of being on a porch someday with a grandchild on my lap and watching the blimp fly over and pointing up to it and saying I was part of saving that. And that's how important and special it was to me. And I loved my time at Goodyear. And they say once you get carbon black in your blood, you never get it out. And that's what it was about for me. And so 12 years at Goodyear and then a couple at Pirelli. And then I came back from Pirelli, and that's when I got hooked up in the private equity and banking world, because it was a box I hadn't checked before. And then, as you can tell from my voice, I'm old.
Well, wait a minute. I don't think so. Let's not talk about old here. The other day I came in from hours in the yard, and I told my wife, I said, I used to be able to go out and do that for 2 days straight, 8-9 hours a day. Am I getting old? And she just laughed. And yeah, I understand.
So at that point, that's funny. I had decided at that point that I had maybe kind of done enough in life. But one of the things I wanted to do was share some thoughts I had on leadership that went all the way back to my own father about the way that you treat people in life. And I wrote a book, and it's called The Not So Subtle Art of Caring. And it's about the combination of accountability and caring and leading people, and thought I was done until Kingswood Capital Management called and asked if I wanted to be part of Turbo, and so here I am. So that's kind of the Reader's Digest version of my story, Mark. But it's all about being in automotive from childhood on and never wanting to do anything other than that. but it's really rooted in making the lives of other people better, because that's why I wake up every day. It has really less to do with cars or tires than it does with making the lives of other people better, because that's what I do.
This is a great story. And your grandfather and father obviously are very smart men to send you out in the world and say, learn, explore, see things. And boy, you took that to heart when you took that heavy jump into Goodyear. But you're right, Goodyear is one of those brands that all American. And the fact that they got to a point where many big companies do, where things are not going so well. And obviously they were smart to bring in intelligent people to come in and turn that ship around and get the blimp back up in the air, if you will, which is fantastic. And as you move forward through your career, and we're going to talk about your book a little bit later in our talk today, because I want to dive into that too. I want to talk about Turbo Wholesale Tires, the company, because when I look at your website, I get excited because I see a lot of very cool cars. I'm into European sports cars. That's my thing. High performance and all that always has been. Can you talk about Turbo Wholesale Tires? Because again, I mentioned at the beginning, there are so many options for people these days. And it seems like tire companies that are either huge generalists or niche down, which I'm assuming by looking at your website, you guys are in a niche market with the kind of cars I see. Can you tell us more about Turbo?
Sure. Well, I'm part of a private equity organization that bought Turbo at the end of 2022. Turbo was a 40-year-old founder-led organization at that point, and that had come up by, to your point, Mark, really focusing on higher end, high performance applications, kind of fast following Pirelli, Michelin, and Continental, looking at high performance and ultra high performance sizes. And that was one of the things that attracted us to the company. We loved that about the company. And since then, what we've said is, hey, what if we kind of expand that same thinking across other segments? And so you mentioned Rolling Big Power. We're doing that with Rolling Big Power. We're also expanding the Lexani line to include things like EV tires, run flat tires, all weather tires coming soon, et cetera, to make it a more appealing product line for a broader category of consumers. So that's the most exciting part about what we're doing here at Turbo, is saying, hey, let's take what was kind of a niche oriented tire company and make it a broader appeal to a far wider segment of consumers, from Rolling Big Power across all 5 categories in truck, from AT, RT, XT, MT, and HT, and then across the whole waterfront in the Lexani brand, to include not just ultra high performance, but across the broad line and into all categories of consumer vehicles as well.
Well, I can see, having gone to some 30 plus SEMA shows, that in the last 10 years, the Hall of Wheels and Tires has greatly expanded. It used to be you go to SEMA and you get to that hall and you go, okay, I can cover this in an hour or so. Now at 2 floors that seem to walk forever. You can't even see the back wall. This consolidation of niche type tire world brands seems to be a trend that's coming along pretty well. And you mentioned EVs, and I wanted to get your take on this, because I've read more and more about EVs and their effect on tires because of weight and so forth. Can you give me your perspective of EVs, even though they're taking some hits these days? I don't think they're going to go away completely. They'll still be here and they're going to grow in the future. But why think differently about tires for your EV?
Well, EVs really have 3 primary and significant impacts on tires, or considerations for tires. So if you're an EV owner, think about it this way. Your vehicle is significantly heavier than a regular car because of the batteries. Your vehicle places significantly greater demands on your tires from a torque standpoint. So think about how those vehicles take off from a start-stop standpoint. And then think about the noise consideration, because you don't have any ambient engine noise coming into the cabin. You have sort of pure quiet. And so the tires need to be much quieter because you don't have an engine drowning out tire noise. So from a tire engineering standpoint, we need a tire that has a higher load carrying capacity, a much higher ability to handle torque, and then a higher ability to dampen sound. And so it places a far greater demand on the tire engineer. And then there's also a fourth category is the tires need to be more fuel efficient as well, because the more fuel efficient that tire is, and you would say, come on, wait a minute, dude, there is no fuel.
Yeah, fuel, yeah.
But they're fuel efficient to the standpoint that they offer less rolling resistance to the ground, which allows that vehicle to go further on every charge. And so if you think about, hey, the tire has to both wear better and be more fuel efficient, those are kind of opposing forces. And so when someone goes and says to a tire engineer, I need this tire to do all of these things, the tire engineer kind of scratches their head and says, I can do kind of 3 of those things, but not all 4. But you say, no, I need it to do all 4. And so it's a Herculean task for the tire engineer to be able to do that. And so for us, as kind of, as you pointed out, this up and coming tire company, having this tire in our lineup is tremendously important because it says to the marketplace that you should think about us differently. You should think about us as a more important tire company, a more capable tire company, a higher end tire company, because we have the ability to bring a tire like this to market.
Well, it's a nice segue into brands. As I look on your website, Lexani, Falcon, Lionhart, Pirelli. I love that. I just like saying that name, Pirelli. Maybe it's because of the history.
I do too.
Bridgestone, RBP. So when you look at these different tire brands, you're telling me that for your customer, you niche down to the vehicle, use of the vehicle, that kind of thing, to really dial in. Whereas it seems like a majority of the public probably just goes and looks at what's the cheapest tire I can buy, which is probably the worst way to buy tires. But you guys are dealing with this different niche, people that care a lot more about their vehicles. And when I look at your website and I see the lineup of the kinds of cars, I can see that's absolutely true. So when a customer calls in and has a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, a 911 Porsche or whatever it might be, you can help dial them into how to buy the right tire for their vehicle. Because a lot of times you look at manufacturer tires that come on cars, and I always say, well, have they just cut a great deal with that maker? Is that why they're offering that tire? Because I bought cars where, frankly, I didn't like the tires that came on the car, and I quickly changed them out.
Well, certainly, I think there's some of that. If you're an auto manufacturer, certainly cost is important. A car manufacturer doesn't want to pay too much for a tire, but for car manufacturers, there's a lot more that goes into that. That tire has to do a job on that corner of the vehicle. So it has to have certain handling properties. It has to have certain weight carrying properties. It has to have certain fuel efficient properties. And so it's far more than just a beauty contest or a cost contest. That tire has to win versus its competitors in terms of pure capability. And so for us, if you think about our Lexani brand, part of what we're working to accomplish with Lexani is to go up against tire brands like Michelin, Pirelli, and others, and give consumers the opportunity to have all that capability at a far greater value. And so what we like to say is kind of about Lexani is consumers can have everything without sacrificing anything. And that's really what we're striving to do, is to bring to market tires that have all of those important properties that owners of those higher end vehicles expect and demand at a far greater value.
Perfect. I love it. I mentioned in the beginning here that you're a contributor. I'm not sure if I mentioned the magazine, Tire Review, writing on leadership issues and topics relevant to specifically young workers, which I think is great, which dives into my question about mentors in your life. It sounds like you've done the right thing. You've been involved in a lot of different companies, and you surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, know a lot more than you, can teach you a lot of things, and then you can pass that on. Is there somebody in your past career that was really a key mentor for you that really helped you get to where you are today?
Well, my first true mentor in my life was my father. We could talk about others, but first and foremost, it was my father. And my father he was a servant leader before there was a name for it. What I learned from my father was that kindness and accountability are inseparable. You can't lead with one and not the other. You can't show up every day and just say, "Hey, I'm just going to be nice to people and the results will follow," because they never do. No more than you can just show up every day and lead with an iron fist and say, if I just beat the hell out of people every day, the results will follow, because they never do. Because the minute you turn your back, people just go on with what they were doing. But if you appropriately mix accountability and kindness together, you can accomplish almost anything. And that's what I learned from my father. So that's why I would tell you that the most important influence ever in my life was my dad.
The words servant leader, I think, are even more important today than probably any time that they ever have been. What do those words mean to you other than the way you've described your father?
What I would tell you is that part of being a servant to others, because I think a lot of people mistake it when they hear servant leader, they think, oh, here comes a softie. Here comes someone who just wants to be nice to people all the time. Part of being a servant to others is making sure that they understand when they let you down in a way that doesn't impact their dignity. Because if all you are is nice to someone all the time and they don't understand when they come up short, then you're not serving them appropriately. So for me, servant leadership includes making sure that folks understand when they do things right and when they come up short. And for me, that encapsulates servant leadership at its best.
Well, if anybody out there listening has worked under somebody like that, they know it. Unfortunately, I think most people work under different circumstances that they don't like and they don't understand, and they get frustrated and end up leaving. So I'm happy to hear that. Which leads us to what I call the challenge question, and that is a huge, big challenge that you've faced that taught you a valuable lesson, but perhaps at the time it wasn't so much fun to go through.
I'll give you two, and these were personal challenges. We can talk about a business challenge if you'd rather. But our oldest daughter was born with a severe heart defect.
Oh my goodness!
And she nearly died when she was born. She had open heart surgery at 5 days old, and shortly after that, my father died at 58 years old underneath me when the CPR I tried didn't work.
Oh my gosh.
And I tell you, while I would never want to relive either one of these experiences, they taught me what I'm capable of enduring, of living through. And since then, I look at adversity and human cruelty differently. And so if situations and people can't rise to that level of hell, I know that they're no match for me because I've lived through far worse than that. And so that's my advice for others. Don't avoid pain and adversity. Don't run from those things. Use them as opportunities to deepen your foundation for strength and resilience. See, I think that that's wrong, or what's wrong with a lot of business today is that, and I don't want to make it about sort of this generation and sound like, hey, boomer, but we've kind of raised our kids and protected them from adversity and pain, and we run businesses in ways where we say, how can we avoid any type of downside or pain or adversity for our people? But I think we do a disservice for our people and our workers by not introducing them to difficulty, because I think from difficulty comes resilience. And I think resilience is one of the greatest characteristics that you can have as a human being and as a worker. And I know that personally, having learned resilience has served me better than almost any other character trait I own.
Well, I appreciate you sharing some really, incredibly difficult, challenging situations. I can't even imagine, but I agree with you 100%. It goes back to the simplicity of, let's say, working out. If you don't push your muscles to the point of some pain, They don't grow. They don't get stronger. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think, we have probably coddled some kids a bit too much in some cases. Some people do go through challenges, but I agree with you. And the way you put it is really, really well put. And I appreciate you sharing that 100%. You called yourself old. I'm a boomer too, so sometimes I tend to do that, but I try to not think that way. All the things you've done and accomplished in your life, what's on your bucket list? What would you like to accomplish in the future?
A friend of mine who's contemporary to me, and again, I guess that's a nice way of saying old as hell. And he's retired. He asked me recently why I was doing what I'm doing when I could wake up every day and decide today the day I'm going to go play golf or go fishing or sit on the beach. And his name's Tommy. And I said, Tommy, here's the thing. I don't like any of those things more than this. And so until I find that thing, I'm just going to keep doing this. And as I mentioned before, Mark, I do this because it's about improving the lives of other people. And that's really all that's on my bucket list, except maybe running with the Bulls or one or two other adventures. And I get to do this every day, and I get to see other people's lives get better, all connected up with an industry that I love. And that's really special to me. So I know it sounds kind of trite, but that's what's on my list of things to do, is just keep doing this until I find something I like doing better.
Well, it doesn't sound trite to me, and having talked to over 2,500 people, I've learned something. People always say, what's the key thing you've learned talking to so many people? And my regular listeners are going to hear it again. They're going to go, oh, there goes Mark again. But when we figure out a way to do things that help others, I've learned that that's when we are our best. And if we can combine that with our passion, which is, you've done both. I mean, you've got the double secret sauce to the best hamburger, because you figured out both how to help people and you enjoy what you do and you're in your field of passion. Nothing can get better. So that's why you choose not to go lay on a beach or go play golf every day, because that would get very boring very fast. So I like the way you said that. You're a very fortunate guy, but I don't believe so much in fortune. It's more about how we plan and how we put our lives together. And that sounds like that's exactly what you've done. We're Cars Yeah here, so we like to talk about cars. And I know there's a GT500 that you drive every day. Would that be your special vehicle story you'd like to share, or is there another car in your past?
There is another one. You mentioned it earlier in my intro. So on a freezing cold winter day, on a whim, my dad saw a tub of 1965 GTO in an Auto Trader book that was about an hour from our house, and he convinced me to go out with him and look at it. And I ended up, get this, I traded him a triple black 1969 GTO for that car. And I ended up racing that 65 for a lot of my life. And I bought that car with my dad. I worked on that car with my dad. I raced that car with my dad. And it was Ford Ranger purple. He called it Barney after the children's TV character.
Yeah.
And like Barney, it was big, it was loud, it was obnoxious, and my wife hated it. But it was, and it always will be, the most important car in my life.
Very cool. I love it. So I'm going to play car psychologist today. I like to crawl into my guest's head a little bit. If you were reincarnated or manifest as a vehicle, what would you be and why?
Kind of going back and forth on this, but I think I'd be an F430.
Okay.
You know how the 3 Series BMW, even after one generation, just looks old? I think the F430 isn't like that. I think most people could believe that it's a current model car. It just never gets old. And I kind of like to think of myself a bit like that. I don't give in to age, and I don't ever intend to. And I think 20 years from now, the F430 is still going to seem younger than it is. And I guess I intend to be like that too.
I love it. Nice answer to that question. Very cool. So books, we talked about, you mentioned your book, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about this book, The Not So Subtle Art of Caring, Letters on Leadership. I think it defines who you are in many, many ways. When did you write this book? What inspired you to write this book? And is it still available?
Yeah, it's still available anywhere that great books are sold, as they say. And as I mentioned, in 2020, I had kind of decided that I was going to just kind of stop working for the most part. I had, as you mentioned, I still do some work for Stout, and I kind of decided that if I knew folks or if they really needed help, I'd kind of go out and do some consulting type work. But for the most part, my son was still in high school, and I decided that I wanted to be home every day when he woke up. But at the same time, I was a little bit bored, and so I sat at our island in the kitchen and I just started writing, and I made kind of a job out of it, and I wrote every day for a couple months, and I wrote the book, and it's about all the things really, Mark, that we've been talking about today, and it also stemmed from some letters that I had been writing over the course of my career. Once the groups of people got too big to fit in a room, I started writing to them on Fridays. And the letters that I wrote to them were about things I observed in the world, and then I tied them back to a leadership point. And so the book was kind of a compilation of those letters with some other lessons tied around them. But it was all rooted in the notion that we are better in business and life, in our relationships and in our communities when we're kind to other people, but at the same time when we also hold each other accountable. And so that's really what the book is about. And it just came about by kind of sitting around, kind of doing nothing but being there for my son, but deciding, hey, I ought to share what I've learned in my life with other people. So I wrote a book.
And the trend with you seems to just continue. So that's great. Awesome. I'll put a link to how you can get your hands on this book in Philip's show notes page on the Cars Yeah website. But easy to remember, The Not So Subtle Art of Caring, Letters on Leadership by Phillip Kane. Awesome. So before I let you go today, we're going to go on the ultimate drive here. I'm a bit of an enabler. I'm going to park any car in the world in your driveway. Don't worry about the cost. I'll pay for it. You can take it anywhere. And you can take anybody with you, including someone from the past. So what does the ultimate drive look like for you, Phillip?
Well, I don't think it would be a surprise to you that I'd go on a ride with my dad.
Yeah.
It'd be a 1980 Cadillac Eldorado Barretts. If you remember the one with the stainless steel roof. I'd let him drive, and I'd want him to tell me all the things that he ran out of time to tell me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Especially losing him at such a young age. Absolutely. That sounds like fun. Is there a place in the world you'd like to go on that ride with your dad in that Cadillac?
I don't know. I guess so I grew up in central southeastern Ohio, on US 40. So I guess we just get on US 40 and stay on it all the way across the country until we ran out of space, so we got to the water, I guess. So yeah. I guess that's what we do.
That sounds like fun. You've taken us on a wonderful trip today. I'm so glad that we connected. I want to do a shout out to Catherine Reinhardt at Creative Marketing for putting us together. She has brought another great stellar star here to Cars Yeah. So this has been great fun. Could you leave us with some parting words of inspiration or advice?
I guess I just give your listeners the same advice I give to other people, and also the things I've been telling my kids since they were little. I tell folks, just work hard, tell the truth, and be kind, and love the one you're looking at. And if folks can do those things, they're going to be all right.
I think so. Words of wisdom from a fellow boomer, I'm proud to say. Even though my kids do that same thing to me. Dad, you sound so much like a boomer. And I say, yeah, don't I? Yeah, we're not so dumb. So there you go. How can people learn more about Turbo Wholesale Tires and you?
You can find Turbo at turbotires.net. And if folks want to follow me, they can find me on Insta at Phillip_M_Kane, where I post stuff every once in a while when I have time.
Awesome. Great. I'll put those links on Phillip's show notes page here on the Cars Yeah website. Phillip, this has been so much fun. Thank you for spending some time with me today. I think I'd like to sit with you more in the future and learn a lot more from you. Until you and I talk again, my friend, I'll see you down the road.
Thank you, Mark. I had a blast.
This was fun. Hey, guess what? Some of you regular listeners will remember back in 2019, I created 10, 11 shows called Cars Yeah TV, where I went to some fabulous locations of past Cars Yeah guests, and we did a TV show about it. Well, they're up on the Cars Yeah YouTube channel. So go check it out at YouTube. Just type in Cars Yeah, and the shows will be there for you to enjoy. I hope you have fun watching.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.